Hello and welcome to the Elder Tree podcast. My name is Twiggy Dawn. I'm the founder of the Elder Tree and Alchemilla Herbals, and I reside on Jitterbug land here in far north Queensland. You are listening to the Herbal Education segment, where each new moon I invite a myriad of plant wisdom keepers to chat about the world of herbal education, about their passions and motivations, and their dreams for the future of herbal medicine education in Australia. This podcast is brought to you by the Elder Tree, a non-for-profit organisation whose mission is putting the medicine in the hands of the people. One of the ways that we are doing this is through this podcast. If you would like to go deeper with the podcast journey while supporting the Elder Tree for as little as $2 per week, then you can become a member of our Patreon. Thanks to all of the people and plants who have helped to make this podcast possible. In today's episode, I interview Hollie Wildethorn, a psychotherapist, clinical counsellor, coach, and women's mysteries facilitator, who resides on Walbunja Yuin land in the Hawkesbury Valley north of Sydney. Hollie provides many inspirational offerings through her business, the Institute for Self-Crafting, and her mission is to support people who know that life can be so much more to craft the best self version so far. Hollie is the first person that I've interviewed on this podcast that isn't a herbal educator, but she holds a special space for herbal education. She runs the incredible Wise Women's Gathering near Wise Mans Ferry that is being held in just over 5 weeks on the 16th to the 19th of May. I do want to share a little bit about this gathering. I know that it's not all women listening to this podcast, but for the men that are listening to this, you may like to know about it for your partners and daughters and friends. So the Wise Women's Gathering is an all-ages educational conference that focuses on herbalism, holistic living, women's mysteries, and cultivating community. It provides a space for practitioners and non-practitioners alike to deepen their knowledge and connection with the earth. The gathering emphasizes inclusivity and creates a safe and welcoming environment for all attendees. The presence of herbs is a central theme, as it is a space for traditional wisdom to be shared and passed down. Mentorship and collaboration are also important aspects, with experienced practitioners partnering with younger or less experienced practitioners to co-create workshops. The gathering fosters a sense of community through shared meals, check-ins, and an open mic night where attendees can showcase their talents and be witnessed by their community. For anyone that's interested in attending this incredible, unique gathering, I highly recommend jumping online and checking it out. There's some links in the show notes. Stephanie Hazel and I are going down to Sydney for the gathering this year, and we're running a 3-hour pre-conference presentation together. I'm also running a 90-minute presentation about motherwort, and I also have the honour of being on a discussion panel at the gathering. I have attended this gathering once before, about 6 years ago, and I highly recommend it. So in this interview, Hollie discusses her role in the Wise Women's Gathering and the various offerings that she presents at the event. She emphasizes the importance of inclusivity and creating a sense of belonging for all attendees. Hollie also shares about her work as a therapist, counselor, and coach, specializing in trauma and anxiety. She offers retreats, circles, and online courses focused on women's empowerment and connection to the land. Additionally, Hollie provides professional supervision for health practitioners and women's mysteries facilitators, promoting trauma-informed care and collaboration. She encourages practitioners to share their knowledge and wisdom beyond their individual practices. I hope that you all enjoy this chat as much as I do. Hi, Hollie. Thanks so much for joining me here on the Elder Tree podcast today. How are you going?
I'm going great. I appreciate you having me here, Twiggy.
Yeah, it's wonderful to have you here, and I've been blessed enough to get to attend the Wise Women's Gathering and see one of your most epic creations and things that you're doing, and I've been loving watching you from afar and seeing your beautiful offerings to your community and to the national community, and I look forward to having a chat with you and getting to know you a bit more.
Yeah, right.
I'd really love to start with start with the start, I suppose, like hear a bit about what's led you to this moment in time and what spurred you to want to create some of the things that you're doing at the moment.
Yeah, well, my short version story, how did I get here, is my mum was a hippie. She doesn't mind me saying that. Is probably still a hippie. And the way that all came about was that my parents separated when I was sort of end of primary school, start of high school. And so it was that formative time where my mom was finding herself as, an adult going through a separation and all that sort of thing. And then I was obviously in that, preteen or teen, pubescent, whatever, adolescent world. And so where she ended up finding herself was in that new age, 1990s, like surrounding herself with naturopaths and moving into organic food and doing Reiki and all those kind of things. So it just kind of worked out that, of course, I'm an only child, so I was the only one there with her, and suddenly went from like a blue collar lifestyle to like all these amazing, interesting women around us that were doing things that I'd never seen before, and it was, I guess, it was as though it was just a normal thing, even though it hadn't been normal before. It was a normal thing in the moment of like, this is just how these other people are. And we just fell into that world. And I wouldn't say that I fell into that world because my mum did, because that's not what teenagers do. But I do think that, I was lucky that there was all these other women who were cool and I wanted to be around them. And that's how it all kind of sunk in. So, I'm sure you could tell the exact same story and find a teenager that went the complete opposite way. But I think I had enough exposure to those other women that I was able to just, really get into it and had heaps of guidance and support to be like, I guess, alternative. I don't really like that word, but, moving into that world. And then as I left home and moved into things that I was more interested in for myself, it kind of fell more towards like land-based interests, environmental interests, herbalism, pagan kind of ritual and magic and witchcraft. And I've just kind of always been someone that if the thing that I want isn't there, I just make it happen. And so that's kind of the short version of how I get here. Just making it happen.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you. What a powerful experience at a really poignant time in your life, becoming a young woman and getting to have all these aunties, witches, and natural earth lovers surrounding you and influencing you. And yeah, it's really amazing because often, yeah, like you say, often children can kind of rebel or not necessarily want to listen to their mums or listen to their families. So yeah, the people that you surround your children with, they're the really can be the really influential. So I've got to experience that firsthand being at the Wise Women's Gathering that you're the weaver of, and I've got to see all those, there's the group of children doing all the activities, but then there's all the maidens that are being guided at a really poignant time in their life, and during that prepubescent and pubescent phase, being guided in by the aunties in a really good way. So yeah, I can see how you having that experience as a young woman coming into being a woman, how then I could imagine that's now spurred you to want to create that for other young girls as well. It's really beautiful.
Yeah, I think it's very important to just have the accessibility, and like for a lot of women, I think, who come to the conference, it's it's not something that's available in their everyday world, or they're not surrounded by women who are interested in those things. Not for everyone, at least. I'm sure the practitioners are exposed and surrounded, but a lot of the attendees who aren't practitioners, this is their way of reaching into a community like that that might not be around them in their local area, or they just don't have time for in their lives. And then to be able to bring your daughters along to that too is pretty powerful, right? Because you're showing them something different, maybe, if that's not the world you usually live in. And that certainly was my experience as a kid, like, coming out of this really, um, meat and three veggie kind of blue collar world to suddenly eating like organic tabbouleh or something like that, and realizing that not only is it different, but it's actually normal because there's these other people. There is a community, so it's not like an odd thing that we do and no one else does. Actually, it's just two different things that happen at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, normalizing it as a like this is culture. This is just the norm. Yeah, I was planning on bringing my daughter along this year, and she's 11, and she would have been in the children's group, and she was going to pay for her own flights to come down for it. And she was very excited to
Wow.
come, but now because of my involvement with the gathering this year, so I'm not going to be bringing her. But I'm going to bring her next year. I've committed to that, and then she'll be in the Maidens group, so she's going to be pretty excited about that. Because unlike a lot of young girls, she's pretty up for speaking really openly with things with me, and receiving my guidance or perspective on these things. But I'm really excited to get to put her in just in a melting pot of wisdom there next year in the Maidens group. So yeah, thank you for making that possible, because I don't know where else that exists in Australia. There might be little nooks and crannies that I'm not aware of where there's like Maidens groups, but yeah, there's nothing like that up here.
I don't know what else is available either, but every year when I look at like what's our debrief, what are we doing, what are we not doing, and I think, oh, it would be so much easier to not have the kids involved, right? But it is so important to have the kids involved and to have that maiden space. So it's not a space we're ever going to get rid of, even though it does take like a big chunk of the resources of the conference. It takes a big chunk of the resources, just energy and time for everyone that's involved with organising. But it's the future, right? It has to
Mm-hmm.
be there.
Yeah, exactly. That's the next generation of wise, law keepers that we're raising. So yeah, it's really important not to disclude them, because there's so many
Definitely.
amazing educational and healing retreat type spaces that I go to or am part of creating, and the kids aren't included in that. They're left at home while the parents go and have their transformative experiences or their upgrades and their awakenings and whatever healings, and then they come home, and the children have kind of missed out on that, or the teenagers or whatever have missed out on that. So yeah, I really love that inclusivity that you have there with that, even though it comes at a cost, obviously. Yeah, so I really love Wise Women's Gathering. I've only been once, but I'd love for you to share a bit about the event beyond what we're just talking about with the maidens and everything. Just for our listeners that have never heard of this gathering, can you share a bit about it with us?
Sure. Yeah. So its title is Wise Women Gathering, but we refer to it as a conference rather than a gathering or a festival, because we really lean deeply into the educational side of it. And what part of my vision of it is that it's a really quality education space for practitioners who are already obviously well educated in the areas that they are, but also that it allows accessibility for women who aren't practitioners, who are really interested in herbalism, or they want to raise their kids naturally, or all these kind of, I guess, like edges of the herbal world, um, that so that they're not just like getting some 2-hour workshop at some community center in their local area that's kind of basic. They can actually dive in at different levels and different depths that would be as equivalent for a practitioner, or as interesting for a practitioner. So that's kind of the framework. And so we say that we cover 4 streams. So there's the herbal or the plant wisdom, and then there's the holistic living, and so that includes healing, but also it could be conscious living stuff, natural parenting, that sort of thing. Then the women's mysteries, and then the 4th stream is cultivating community. And so that, because of that, this conference will never get larger than 200 people, including the kids and the maidens. Yeah, so it, I want it to always feel like a village, not a city. And so, by the end of a weekend, 4 days of being together, or 3 days, depending when people arrive, there's the feeling that you've seen everyone's face. You have all these sisters. You're making eye contact with people that 4 days ago you didn't know, but now you've got these friends that travel from all over Australia. Like that's the juice of it, right? That's the aesthetic that I want to keep. So regardless of, if we ever had to move venues or all these things that could happen, that's the structure that will stay, those components. And then within that, providing a space where women can just drop and not have to do. So we're fully catered. It's all like the menu is really not choreographed, what's a good word? What do they do at museums?
Pre-planned?
Curated.
Curated, yeah.
So the menu is really well curated by some of our naturopaths and our also like with some of our partners that provide like all this nutrient dense food. And Linda, our caterer, is learned so much about how to prepare like just really healthy nutrient dense food. So that's a big piece too. So it means that you can just come and not have to think about any of those kind of aspects. Know that you're going to get exactly what you need nutrition wise, and then be able to actually enjoy the space, enjoy the connections and community, enjoy the the learning, the education, and enjoy just like going for a walk or going for a swim. And it's in this most beautiful location in Wise Mans Ferry, which is on the Hawkesbury, or part near the Hawkesbury River. And so it's a valley. So we're just held in this, big field that's surrounded by mountains on all the angles. And it's a little bit warm because it's 90 minutes north of Sydney. And yeah, it's beautiful. The whole point is that it's beautiful, and it will always stay beautiful. Beautiful and connected. Yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah, I love that your dedication to it not growing beyond a certain point to maintain that intimacy and that sense of community. And I love everyone eating together like that. Like I'm not actually sure if I've ever eaten 3 meals a day with so many people in one space, yet it feeling so connected. And yeah, it's a really, really beautiful experience, actually.
Yeah, and that's where the magic happens actually, like those conversations, and we really work hard on cultivating a community element where everyone should be able to feel comfortable wherever they're coming in, wherever they're from, whoever they are, So somebody who doesn't know anything about herbalism could sit at a table with Pat Collins and Sally Kingsford Smith and Kerry Alexander and blah blah blah, all the people, and just like feel welcome and be part of the conversation. And it's yeah. And over the years, as the same people keep coming back, and then we slowly have this trickle of new people, it means that everybody is holding the culture of the inclusivity, right? So all those people that I mentioned, yeah, they're these important herbalists that we all want to learn from, but they're also people like really awesome women who want to be part of it too. So yeah, what I love about it is that it's not me holding the culture; it's everyone in the community holding the culture. And I don't know how we got there, but that's where we are. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, beautiful. I actually met Sally Kingsford Smith at the Wise Men's gathering in a beautiful little intimate workshop tucked away in some timber room. I don't even know how I got there, but there's just so many like amazing nooks and crannies and so many amazing yeah, wisdom keepers from around like far and wide that all coming together in there. And yeah, it's so powerful yet somehow not overwhelming at the same time. Like it feels that kind of connected and that intimacy and all of that. So yeah, and the sacred element as well, what's brought in there of the ceremonial element. You spoke about the kind of the four main tiers of, or the four main focal points of the gathering.
Streams.
Streams, thanks. But yeah, I think like also I would almost dare to venture that there's a fourth stream of just like the sacred, like the amount of different spaces I got to experience, being taught sacred songs and shown different sacred practices, and people just coming together with a real ceremonial element to it is really, really quite powerful for a large, for a fairly large group to all come together like that. It's really beautiful. I learned songs there that I'm still teaching to people now that just really drop people just into such a space of presence and connection with nature. And yeah, so the gifts that are
Yeah,
given in
that's
that space
gorgeous.
just keep on giving. Yeah.
And when you say that, I'm just sort of reflecting and thinking, yeah, like, I mean, that's the framework that I hold because that's what I do, right? Like that's my part of the work. Like I always do run a presentation when I'm there, but I don't really need to, because for me it's about the broader picture of how I'm holding and the vision that's there more largely. And so, yeah, like, I mean, all those things that you just mentioned, like that's what I do. That is
Yeah.
the thing, So it has to be there. And similarly, like the trauma informed element is so important to me. And so we have that, it just comes, it flows in so many ways right through to educators having to do a course around trauma-informed work and decolonization, but also like the other end of just like how we hold on the weekend, and having a quite a large psychotherapy team, and just that I guess the way I hold the things is a big piece of the framework that doesn't get publicized, but it is, and I don't know exactly what I'm trying to say, but I guess I'm kind of feeling witnessed by you saying that, Twiggy.
Yeah. I really love that, what you're saying about that trauma-informed training for the educators. And yeah, it's so important. It's so important. Everything that you're creating there is just super important, actually. Yeah, so I think like something that stood out to me when I came 8 years ago, 7 or 8 years ago when I came, was the just the presence of the herbs. I know that it's one of only four main streams, but it just seemed like just a herbal gathering in so many ways to me. There was, and I'd love to hear, I suppose, from you, like why there is such a presence of the herbs and what you think that is the importance and the benefit of bringing all of these different herbal educators and wisdom keepers together to share.
Mm. Well, I certainly can't claim the founding of that concept. So Stephanie started, a woman named Stephanie started the conference with her friend Beck at the time. And Beck is, oh, you probably know this better than I do. Is it Rad Herbs?
Yeah,
Maybe she's a part of down in the
yeah.
Bega Valley. Yeah.
Rad Herbs Australia.
So
Yeah.
yes, yeah. So Beck and Stephanie kind of put together that first conference, as far as I understand it. And then, Stephanie ran it for maybe another year or two, and she moved back to the US, and so then I took it over. But I think their focus was very much the herbs, and so that's why it had such a heavy piece. And then, so by the time I took over, so in those days I was actually running the Maidens camp. That was my role at Wise Women, and then I stepped into running the whole thing somehow. And and yeah, so because that was already there, of course that was going to stay, and we just had so many women already involved, like some of those women we mentioned before. So that's always been an important piece. And for me, like, I am just so interested in how I just think that any personal work or therapeutic work or self-help work or whatever, if it's not leading us back to a deeper connection with the earth, then there's no point doing it. It's kind of, I guess, one of my broader points in the world. So, it just fits with the vision for me to be keeping those plant elements in. And some people are arriving for the first time because they're coming into the women's mystery stream, or they're coming through because their friend is a natural parenting friend, and they brought them and they've not really had any experience with any of this. And so to provide those spaces where people can just have their eyes open to things so that they get closer to the earth, like, to me, that's the best work, right? That's the reason that we do any of it, or that I do any of it. So yeah, the herbs have to stay. And like, if we don't keep the traditional wisdom, then if we don't keep teaching it and we don't keep giving people access to it, then it's gone, right? And so that's a huge piece in the holding, is around like, how do we continue to share traditional wisdom in respectful and properly educated ways? Yeah, like making sure that all the practitioners who are educators at the conference have their own professional insurance, because they are professionals. So people might apply that don't have any professional whatever, like letters after their name or certificates or whatever. And I'm not staunch about certificates, but I want to see that somebody's working professionally in the industry so that they are able to speak to the topic like well and, safely and all those things. So that is a piece. It's like, yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And so
it is important
keeping that
holding that.
traditional. You go.
Yeah, it is important, handing down that knowledge. I've always said that classic statement that with knowledge comes responsibility. A lot of people think that with knowledge comes power, and so then when you're coming from an industry mindset, then knowledge can be a weird thing. But when you're in a community mindset, knowledge is something that as soon as you've got it, it's a ball that has to be passed on. And and in Australia we don't actually have very many places herbally for that ball to be passed on in a non institutional way, or like, you know, kind of university schoolroom setting type space, like in the actual, like around the fire or in a circle, in a, you know, in natural structures or on the earth or with, you know, with kin. Like there's not that many spaces in Australia for that kind of wisdom to be like passed in a gathering for herbs. So yeah, so thanks for keeping that element strong, you know, when you took over this project. Thanks for really allowing that to be such a big part of it. Yeah, because it's what's drawing me back.
That's awesome. And I think, like what you just said, it's the like for practitioners to be able to share their knowledge outside of institutions, then the onus is on them, right? And that's a heavy burden sometimes for people that might not be confident in teaching. Like you might be an amazing practitioner, but not necessarily ever actually done an educational kind of lecture or something. And so being able to provide that space, and one of the ways that we're building on that this year and will continue is starting to offer some of the more experienced practitioners, like Sally Kingsford Smith. She's kind of pushing the ball on this one. She is taking like I guess a younger practitioner or a less experienced practitioner under her wing, and they'll present together. And so I'm really interested in like, how do we collaborate in this space? How do we mentor an apprentice, but also not just the apprentice parts, but also the women who are super experienced? How do we put them together, and what kind of magic happens then, right? Because that's outside of what the rest of culture would give us around what women are supposed to do and how we're supposed to respond to each other. And so, like, when we just wipe the floor clean of any competition, and then we have two women that are equally respected in their fields or maybe separate fields, and we put them in a room together to teach, what kind of magic is going to happen then? And so that's what our pre-conferences will be this year. Intensives on, they're 3-hour intensives before the conference, and we've got 2 of those being offered. Of course, you and Stephanie are doing one, Twiggy, and
Mm-hmm.
also Laura Doe and Kaggy Valentine from the Women's Mysteries stream. And I just can't wait to see what happens there, because this is a space where women are going to get to lean into each other rather than you have to fight for who's more important or who's going to come to my workshop instead of yours, or like, we just don't play those games here.
Yeah, people will be drawn to wherever they're meant to be. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful what you're saying about like the mentorship and that passing things on. I'm in a group with Sally Kingsford Smith in the estuary learning community, and you know, that's a really big focus is mentorship and collaboration. And yeah, that's kind of, you know, my passion as well, is like collaborating and, you know, and creating spaces of mentorship as well. So it's really great to see different models and different ways that people can action that, you know, like what you're saying. I love that Sally coming with one of her students to co-create the workshop. And yeah, just that, yeah, it's going to be really, really good.
We work quite closely with EL, so they're a partner for Wise Women Gathering.
Mm-hmm.
We have got a few other partners. Herbal Extract Company is our major kind of partner, and then the Shamanic School of Womancraft. And so, again, it's collaboration, right? It's like, how, when we're all got these kind of different ideas, but also really similar ideas, how do we bring that together? So that's a really important piece, actually. Maybe the 6th stream, Twiggy, is collaboration.
Yeah, that kind of comes under cultivating community in a way, though, doesn't it? Yeah.
That's true. That is true.
um, so I would love to hear a little bit more about that, about the cultivating community stream, and I suppose like what that looks like, what, you know, how you create that space there.
Well, like, part of what I was saying before around just, the inclusivity culture, I put a lot of, well, I think I put a bit of effort into like helping the volleys feel really safe in the space so that then they can expand that inclusivity. And, we talk to educators and volleys about, if you see someone on their own, approach them, have a chat, that sort of thing, particularly when we know over time, over the years, people know each other, and then they're kind of aware of the people that are new. So being able to really grab them and bring them into the fold really quickly. We have a lot of energy and resources go into check in, sorry. So as people are arriving, having a team there that really welcomes them, answers their questions, all those kind of things that I assume other conferences and gatherings do, but I don't know because I don't go to them. Um, And then, things like the first, if there's an early arrival, we have, like a kind of a discussion group where people can land and see faces and make eye contact. I think eating together, like you said, is a piece of it. And then on the Saturday night, we have an open mic night. And for the last few years, Laura Doe Harris has run that or done the emceeing for me. I don't know if you know Laura Doe, but she is a great performer. She's hilarious. She's everything. I could rave about Laura Doe forever. Uh, and I love that she took over that role because I hate doing the emceeing on open mic night. So, and that's a way that women who want to, well, there's kind of two things that happen. There's women that have performances or things that they want to say or ways that they want to share so they can get up and be witnessed by their community. But also the thing that's grown through that is so many firsts, because there's already safety. By Saturday night, people have been there for a few days, they're connected, they're feeling really safe. And so people who have never read their poetry get up on stage, people who have never played their guitar in front of anyone get up on stage. And it is so amazing. And, nobody in that room wants you to fail. Everyone there is like ready to be behind you and have your back. And so, yeah, just those kind of elements. By that stage of the weekend, everyone is there for each other 100%. Everyone knows what's expected in terms of that inclusivity. And so it just keeps unfolding. And of course, if people are able to open their hearts, that can only get better and better and better. So in a way, we don't do a lot to cultivate the community, but in a way, the structure is there to do so. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. That's so good. Yeah, thank you for that. It's really important. It's a really important kind of remedy for the modern competitive world that we're in and the modern kind of every man for themselves kind of mentality that's so deeply woven into current modern culture, to be able to have these like check-in spaces and having people make sure that no one's feeling discluded and everyone's feeling brought into the fold and that everyone's feeling safe and held enough to be able to bring their gifts forward even when that's a bit vulnerable or scary or it's a wonderful role modeling of how society could be or how or ways that we can bring that into our society to make our society slowly change. So sometimes you don't even know what needs to change until you can be in an environment where you get to see it role modeled. You might have ideals on like what inclusivity might look like, but unless you're actually like in a world where it's truly being role modeled and created, then yeah, it's hard to actually implement that into life. Yeah. So thank you for that. Yeah, you were saying you weren't sure if other conferences included that, and I haven't heard of it. Especially what you're saying about the people that are there time and time again, instead of creating this kind of clicky inness, like they're being asked to make sure that no one's sitting alone and that no one's outside of that. Everyone's together in there. I haven't actually seen that. Spoken of for other large gatherings. It's really beautiful.
Mm. I guess like I have a pretty strong sense of fairness and um, like being an only child, remembering like going to visit like friends' houses and the siblings would be fighting and I'd just be like, what is happening? Why is everyone doing this? Like there's something in me that needs everyone to feel included. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I guess that just however I create things in my world, somehow the structure falls in that place. And um, yeah, and it's just great that other people want to do it too.
Yeah, it should just be what comes naturally, right?
Hmm.
So I would love to hear, I suppose, a little bit more about, about you. You said that you present as well at the gathering. Like, what kind of things do you present about there?
Well, it usually ends up some sort of conglomerate of magic, witchcraft, spellcraft kind of elements,
Mm,
movement, because I run a little martial arts and natural movement school, and then the nervous system. Like just from that therapeutic aspect. So and bringing those three together in some way. So for example, last year I did a ecstatic posture, so that involved the body, but we were using herbs and things from a magical perspective rather than a herbalist medicine perspective. And then all the integration that happens at the end to bring your nervous system online and keep the vibe, I guess. Other years I've taught more specifically about movement and regulation, and co-regulation. This year, it's called Women Who Dream Wildly, and it will be something to do with movement and magic. That's all I've got so far.
Nice.
Yeah, it just sort of, usually I have something written. This year it just didn't happen before the timetable got put together, and it just got stuck on the timetable, and I will work it out as we go. And often actually I'm working it out there and then, and I'm getting it because I always present on the last day. The beginning is just too much, right, while I'm organizing things. So it'll always be on the last day. And by then I've got a good sense of the kind of themes that have been around for the weekend, the kind of vibe that's been happening, any like little gaps that might have formed, where maybe there was someone who wasn't included, and or they felt not included, or just those kind of things that I can kind of watch happening, and then I can weave that into my presentation as well. So I guess, yeah, it's not just one thing, but that's kind of my story. It's never just one thing.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
It's
all
always a
it's all the
weaving.
things.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, wonderful. Oh, I'm really excited to
The
get to join in on that, on movement and magic together. Sounds amazing.
Yeah. And the other thing I really enjoy is the panels. So the panels came
Mm,
out of kind of an accident. So we used to have two keynote speakers every year, and they would kind of be, in the program at a certain time. But what kept happening was either, at the last minute they couldn't come, or one of them would get sick or something. And so we'd have to suddenly fill the gap. And so one time we just suddenly filled the gap with like a panel. I was like, okay, we'll just use something within the same theme. Here's a question, grab some people out of the room that I knew that could speak to it. And so we filled it that way. And then that was so good that it just has kept growing and growing. And now I think this year we've got 6 panels, and that we get people to say like that is the best part, because you're getting to hear just like diverse ideas about the same topic. We always have, a women's mysteries one, a herbal one, a health one, or more. It's probably like leaning into the therapy element because that's my little bias. Um, and so, yeah, last year we did a youth panel. Like we wanted to hear from the youth and see what they had to say. And so that I love that. I love being the mediator on those. I love speaking on those. I just think that that's the gold. And I've got
mm,
some visions for the future if I ever get around to it, of being able to work that more into outside things, not just at the conference, where we keep using that kind of format. Um, because it's so beautiful because it's not prepared, right? The women kind of know what they're going to get asked. Like the mediator does contact them beforehand these days, now that we have it in the plan, but it could go any direction. And then of course you get questions from the audience, and
mm.
yeah, it's awesome. It's so good. And we do record it all, and I've got just years of recordings of everything that's happened, and there's a bit of a process of getting them onto a platform somewhere, but that's intended, right? So yeah, so that will all be accessible to people one day, and these days I just don't say when, because when just keeps being extended.
Mhm. Wow, it'll be an absolute treasure trove of wisdom by the time it gets released.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah,
Mm.
absolutely. Like an encyclopedia. And I don't think there's anything like that out there. So I really do want to make that happen. But it's just prioritizing all the things right now. Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, you'd have enough on your plate just organizing everything at the moment. I know what it takes coordinating large events. It's huge. Most people don't really understand what it takes behind the scenes to pull something like this off, and all of the hours of communication and effort and time that's got to go before anything even starts. It's yeah. So hat
Yeah.
off to you for keeping it going for so long, and yeah, continuing it going. Mm.
Thank you. Well, it's me, but it's also, I have a group of women that we call the Round Table,
Mm-hmm.
and they're women that have been within that Wise Women community for quite a while, and they all have different roles. They're different ages. They come out of the different fields, and so they're really instrumental in I guess, like, they're not really doing any organizational work in the lead up, but they are the point at which I pause at. And so for example, when we're getting the timetable ready with all the educators, they go through all of the applications. All the applications have had names taken out, any identifying information. So everyone's treated the same, so it doesn't matter where you studied or how famous you are or whatever. And then they're all the round table rates all of those applications. And then from what they say, I then put together a draft timetable. We go back to another meeting and then we all discuss, like, any edgies, any crunchy bits, any concerns. Is this going to be, does this feel like it could really easily lean into cultural appropriation? Does this feel like this person can actually hold the level of trauma that might come up in the group? Things like that. And of course, it's all just based on our opinion from our fields. We never know for sure any of those answers, but that's just another way that we try to cover. So they're really useful, and right down to, like, last week I was having a meltdown and I sent Sally a message and said, pretty sure I'm having a nervous breakdown, please send herbs. And she did. So the roundtable are very helpful in many ways, very supportive, and it certainly wouldn't exist in the same way without them, because sometimes it's just one little comment that shifts my whole head around something. Like, oh yeah, that's it. And then we piece that together or work out how that's going to fit in. And it's definitely a communal effort in that way.
Wonderful. I'd love to hear a bit more about your offerings outside of the Wise Women's Gathering, and some of the things that you're up to that listeners might be interested in hearing about.
Sure. Well, my everyday job is that I'm a therapist, as I think I've already said, counsellor and a coach, and specialising in, like, trauma and anxiety, and pretty much only women, although I do have a small cohort of local young people, just because I'm in a rural area and there's only so many therapists around. And also because a lot of my work is in ecotherapy and equine assisted therapy. So, those young people, often neurodivergent people with funding, will come and, we'll do on land work. And that's the only way I'll work with young people now, is on land. And that's really, it's great. It's very fulfilling. So that's my everyday work. And then I guess as a little edge to that, I hold a lot of space for groups, whether that's circles or retreats. And again, all coming back to land. Like, everything comes back to, how do I get people onto the land? How do I get people to have relationship with the land and the sky and the animals and the trees and each other? It's all about relationship, or as I say, real relationship. So I have retreats all year round. We do seasonal retreats, so tomorrow I have an autumn retreat. Obviously, this podcast will come out after that. But every season I do one, and then in between I do work around, I guess, topics that are very common for women and are stuck points for women. So, for example, we've got one later in the year around body image. We've got one around I guess, the archetypes of growth and life transformations, not maiden, mother, croon, not like that, but more, I guess, more broader archetypes that we see come across all women, no matter what experience, no matter what we're doing in our world and our lives, we're having these archetypes. So that's my, I guess, forward edge, and I'm always excited about. And then bringing the horses into that, I have a herd of 6 horses, and they have every shape and size and every behavioural pattern. And so they're very involved in the work. So that's a bit. And then, there's so many other elements, Twiggy. I'm just going to pause and you say whatever you want from there.
Oh, wonderful. That's incredible work that you're doing. We'd love to have you come up here and do some of that stuff sometime. I think our community would really love that, if you would ever take it abroad.
It's tricky. It's tricky because for me it's so much about relationship with here, like where I live, like all of our retreats are on our land. And obviously I know that deeply. Like I kind of say, like, I belong to this land, like it doesn't belong to me, but I belong to it. And so like when people come into our space and they're interacting with the animals that are here every day, whether that be wild animals or the domestic animals, and interacting with the plants that are here every day, and and the climate and all those things that like I have a relationship with. Like I don't know what I would do up there with you. Like that's such a, I'm in in a cold climate, like one of the
Mm.
coldest climates in Australia. And so yeah, that's the relationship I have, and I know how to speak from, and I guess teach relationship through. So I'm not saying I couldn't or wouldn't do it, but it's very different, I guess. Yeah,
Mm.
it's not the focus right now, at least.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But you welcome people into your community, don't you? I think earlier we were talking and you mentioned that Pat Collins is coming next year and going to be running a retreat on your land. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, each year I try to do at least one thing with another practitioner and bring the horses into the work that they already do. So I'm so stoked. Pat and I have been talking about getting her here for like her first aid course weekend that she does.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got a pretty prolific herbal garden already, and I love cultivating weeds. So that's obviously Pat's love,
Yeah.
and so yeah, I'll plant in some extra things just to kind of support that workshop next year. But we'll be doing the herbal first aid with the horses, and by when I say like with the horses, it's using your patterns and behaviors in a way that you find relating to the way that the horses are, or the way that you interact with the horses when you're on land with them. So, they just kind of do their thing, and we learn so much from them by them doing their thing, because they're
Mm.
not humans. They have a very different brain structure. They're not limited by the bullshit that we're limited by, and so they're just such strong, amazing teachers, and obviously they're beautiful and big and all those things too.
Mm.
And so that's why it's kind of important to be with them on their land, where they know how they know the world. And so, yeah, Pat and I are going to work out a way to do those two things together, because obviously she's already got her formula of how she teaches and the
Mm-hmm.
things that she teaches about. But yeah, we're gonna play around with the horses a bit too, and there might even be some stuff around like medicine for animals. I don't know where we'll go, but we'll know more probably later in this year. Once we get through the conference, then we will
Mm-hmm.
decide more about that.
Yeah, yeah.
But that'll be this time next year, so sort of somewhere between February and April 2025 that will be
Oh,
happening. Yeah.
great. Yeah, whenever you release the information about it, I'll definitely share it to all our people as well. Just before you mentioned that you have quite a cranking herb garden there on your land, and I'd love to know what kind of medicine you've got growing and what you're doing with
Well, what I'm doing with it is the question. I
it.
say I'm a really good planter and a really rubbish harvester. So there's a lot of things. And I'm also kind of a survival of the fittest gardener. So what that looks like is like doing a lot of weeding, weeding grass. I usually leave most other weeds in, but I weed grass, and then just spraying seeds everywhere and finding out what happens. And also just like then going, I don't know what that is. Does anyone know what that is? Because I can't remember what I planted. So there's a lot of that happening out there. And this year, actually, what I did was, so there's a lot of things that have sort of been there for a few years. Your berries and fruit trees. Being cold climate, like berries are pretty good here, apples, plums, that sort of stuff. Uh, but I decided that trying to grow veggies is just too depressing when it doesn't work out. So all I did was plant heaps and heaps of pumpkins because they look really luscious when they grow. And then I just planted heaps and heaps of flowers. So I just get dopamine wherever I walk in the garden, and it makes me very happy. But I don't have to worry about like, oh, the corn didn't work, or oh, the horse broke out and ate the corn, which happens pretty much every year. So, but I've got lots of agrimony, which I don't actually even remember what that's for herbally. So maybe you could tell people.
Oh, I don't actually work with agrimony. I grow a couple of different varieties, but it's never been thriving enough. I always wait till the plant's at a certain point of thriving, and I feel like I have a certain amount of rapport with it before I start investigating, how to work with it. So yeah, it's
Yeah,
been a
cool.
few years now with the agrimony, and I'm kind of waiting for that moment to come. It hasn't come yet. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Well, it's very prolific here. Um, and I've got comfrey, I've got, your
Mm.
lemon farms. I'd have to walk around out there and have a look. Like, there's just so many. Um, but I'm having a blank. Lots of different types of salvias. Um, heaps of dandelion because I love my weeds. lots of those kind of fleabane, hens, fat hen, that's what Pat calls it, belladonna berry, which is one that I've learned a lot from Pat about. That grows really prolifically here. Yeah, I don't know. There's plenty.
Yeah, we don't have to be harvesting the medicine and consuming it or doing something with it, using it to be able to receive the medicine. Like just the act of growing the medicine and having it around you can be so beneficial. And also, it doesn't always have to be growing these plants for us. Sometimes we're growing these plants for the pollinators, we're growing these plants for the other animals, or just for the ecosystem, for biodiversity. We're growing them for each other. We're growing them just to be of service to the plants. So yeah, like you can have a whole cranking herbal medicine garden and still be, still be a herbalist and medicine weaver without once even harvesting it to make something. There's so many ways to work with plants for medicine.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly how I view it. And yeah, and I'm like just so fascinated by what comes up where, like who comes up when. One year, like for example, we were quite affected by the bushfires where I live in 2019-20, and the amount of mullein that came up that next year everywhere.
Yeah.
But then the following year there was none.
Mm-hmm.
There's like one mullein plant in my garden now, but the whole garden was full of it, and I didn't get rid of it. It just didn't come back. So that stuff I'm just fascinated by, and just watching nature do whatever she does. And then outside of the garden, I mean, we've got 100 acres of forest, and so then again watching that and watching the colonizing species that come through at different times, and as I clip that to give to the goats, what happens then? And it's forever learning. Like it's just so amazing and interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing, giving us some insight into your garden and your beautiful horses and your world and what you're creating there. Um, I'd love to hear a bit about what you've got coming up, for our listeners to know about what some of your, I suppose, current offerings are, but also like what's in store in the coming months.
Sure. Well, there's always a retreat coming up, like I said, seasonal or transformative. So they're always happening, and they're easily found on the calendar. So I'm sure you already said in the beginning that my company is called Institute for Self Crafting, and so that's where people find all the things. I run a lot of circles. I do in-person full moon circles here on our land. I do in-person full moon circles in Canberra. New moon circles in Canberra. And then I offer online moon circles as well, which are all just for women, for, the audience that's outside of these areas. I also do online seasonal circles, so once every 6 weeks or so. And they involve like a group of goddesses that I work with. So I have a story that I've written about each goddess. And so as we move through the season, we're really focusing in on one of those stories and one of those goddesses, and, that archetypal cosmic woman energy that's there. And so that's the way that we explore the season, is through that goddess story, or heroine story, as I say. So that's always going on. They're always out there and happening. And then on a more sort of smaller group level, I'm really interested in professional supervision. So as a therapist, we have to have professional supervision. And I'm aware that a lot of other health practitioners don't have to do that as part of their regulated body rules, CPD, whatever. And so this is something that having been in this like multidisciplinary space at Wise Women, it really stands out to me. And then of course, just in my personal life, going to practitioners, say going to the physio and going, oh man, you've got no trauma informed ability at all, and like this is terrible kind of stuff. So I, rather than complain about it, I thought I better do something about it. So I offer group supervision for professionals in the health sphere. So people that might not have that kind of supervision, or maybe just don't have the reflective level. Like maybe you're a nurse and you have like organizational supervision, but it's very pragmatic and it's just about the organization. So this is like, let's move out of that. Let's find a bit more of a transformative space, a bit more reflective, a bit more creative, experiential. and then with that trauma-informed lens over the top. So helping practitioners, whether they're naturopaths or nurses or physios, be able to work with their own clients or patients in a way that's trauma-informed, that's outside of just the ick that happens in the wellness space, the really waspy, just yucky stuff. And so really being able to bring that into focus. So that's an area I'm super excited about. And so I have one group that's for health practitioners, and I have another group for women's mysteries facilitators, because that's another area that I'm super passionate about in terms of doing trauma-informed space well, and sort of not using cultural appropriation and all those sorts of things. So that's available. That's just easily found by just searching Institute for Self-Crafting Supervision and just applying to be on a waiting list for the next group. And they're small groups, and they'll be with people from all over Australia too. So there's, like I said, collaboration and multidisciplinary space is really exciting. So for me, I don't know about for everybody else, too bad if not, but it's super exciting for me. So that's something that's coming up. And I think that would be really relevant to your listeners for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much for that. It's a really valuable thing there that you're offering with that. Yeah, we have like changing times, we have increasing amounts of mental health issues and, isolation and yeah, just like so much disconnection. And so, yeah, just your everyday practitioner is really needing to have the skills of learning how to navigate that and work with that. So, yeah, thank you. Thanks for doing that.
And also having just a group that you can turn to. I think so many of us in these fields are working individually, right? And I know that like the herbalists, you guys have got like EL, say, where you've got some sort of collegial situation happening, but for so many practitioners in all the fields, they're on their own, and that's not good for anybody, right? That's not a healthy way to move through, and it's certainly not a way that we can long-term support people. So we need to be able to have colleagues and peers that we can lean into and we can learn from, and feel supported, and know where we're going to fall if we need to, and what's going to happen in that space. Yeah, having some structure there.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, so that all of our listeners know, I'm going to include links in the show notes to everything that Hollie just said, links to the Institute for Self-Crafting and the seasonal circles, and just, yeah. And also we'll make sure we put up on the Elder Tree Facebook page about any, as offerings as they come up for the retreats and things like that as well.
Thank you.
So I'm just wondering if you have any parting words for our listeners before.
I guess just, from everything we've talked about today, and looking through that frame of Wise Women Gathering, I just would love that practitioners realize that whatever you do day to day is not your only job, and it doesn't have to be your only job. It's not the only skills you have. There's so many transferable skills you have in the space that you do your one-on-one work daily that could be beneficial to people outside of that. And so whether that is being an educator in a space like Wise Women, or just in your own workshops, or just those collaborations that you can do with other peers or multidisciplinary peers, there's so much more reach that you have that perhaps you don't realize, and it's really valuable, and you hold knowledge that so many other people don't. And so please don't hide your knowledge and wisdom behind your desk. Let it come out in ways that everybody can experience and grow from, and that's how we make a better world.
Beautiful. Thank you, Hollie. Thanks for everything that you shared here today. It's really great to get a bit of a behind the scenes and a bit of an insight into your world and the Wise Women's Gathering as well. And thank you for coming on here, and thanks for all the beautiful gifts you're sharing as well.
I appreciate you having me, and I look forward to seeing up to 200 people at Wise Women Gathering.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. See you there. Thank you so much for listening to the Herbal Education segment of the Elder Tree podcast. Stay tuned every new moon as I interview more wise and inspiring herbal educators and herbal lawkeepers from around Australia. If you would like to go deeper with the podcast journey, you can become a member of the Elder Tree Trove on Patreon. Contribute as little as $2 per week to access free content from our interviewees and also access discount codes and opportunities which are exclusive to our members. You can find us on Patreon by going to www.patreon.com/theeldertree. Other ways that you can assist us in getting our offerings out there to more people in Australia is by subscribing and leaving a review on Apple Podcasts and on the Spotify app. Also, liking, commenting on and sharing our social media posts actually has a really positive impact and helps us to reach further with the message from all of the amazing herbal lawkeepers that we interview on this podcast. Thank you so much for your support and have a most wonderful day.